Welcome to Elicit Your Possibilities, Episode 1. My name is Nalini Saxena. Today, I'm going to be in conversation with a very special guest who is a client and also a friend. His name is Louis, and I'll give him a chance to introduce himself. But before I do that, I want to tell you that this is a story of someone whom I met and started working with on an executive advisory engagement. And soon we discovered that he had a lot of passion and he had a deep desire to find an avenue for his passion that would be connected to a sense of purpose. And in doing that, we found ourselves incorporating and layering into our executive advisory work some entrepreneurial advisory. And as we started working on that, he was met with tremendous success right out of the gate when he launched his business back in December 2019. But as you can all imagine, in March 2020, during this COVID-19 challenge that we've all been experiencing globally, he and his business were faced with some tremendous obstacles. And he found a way that I've been so touched by and so impressed by, found a way to stay true to his passion, to stay true to his desire to connect to purpose. And he's launched an even newer venture that I'm very excited to support. And I'm very excited to have him tell you the story about today. So Louis, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nalini. As Nalini mentioned, you and I have been working together for quite some time now. It's been quite the exciting journey, as I would say. So many things have happened. I think we're coming up to a little past the year mark of us kind of working on this, or just working on, working together. And yeah, I think so many different milestones have been hit, and just so many different, things that I didn't think I could do before are possible. And I thank you for all the help that you've been given to me and my mom, because she's a part of this as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this new, chapter of how my mom and I are trying to support our local community, Suchitoto, El Salvador, right now during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm really can't wait to tell this story.
Great. I'm excited to have you tell it as well. So let's frame for our audience a few characters that are really important here. We have your grandparents, we have your parents, we have you, and then we have the people of Suchitoto. So tell us a little bit about each of these groups.
So yeah, I'd love to answer this question. So my family, my mom's side of my family, grew up in a small town called Suchitoto, El Salvador. Very small colonial town, a lot of history, a lot of culture. It's one of my favorite places to go to when I visit El Salvador. And recently, my mom moved to El Salvador to, try a new chapter of her life. And part of this chapter is her and I built together a kind of a train tourism company. And she stayed down there to help kind of build that business out. And once this COVID-19 pandemic hit, our business model, our thinking, everything changed. Everything went out the door. And the situation now in this town and in El Salvador as a whole is very difficult, because El Salvador, it's a very poor country in the sense of just the poverty rate is so high. And my mom is very close with the community, and people know her very well. And she's been telling me stories that people are having a hard time having access to foods because of the quarantine laws the president has put in place. Supermarkets are beginning to close. People are not allowed outside past 3 p.m. I think the quarantine law is. And then the other part of it, transportation that's halted. There's no more buses. There's no more access. You can't go in your car. So things have just turned a little bit south within the country. So my mom and I have been shifting towards how we can help give back to the community that actually made our business possible.
So I'm going to rewind just a little so that we can make sure that everyone is following your story. So you are based in...
Oh, I'm based in Long Island, New York.
You're based in Long Island, New York. And you work at EY.
Yep.
And as a side hustle, you started a business back in December. And it was born out of a desire for you to connect with your El Salvadorian heritage, with the land specifically where your grandparents had made a mark and really served the people. And through your travels there, where you discovered that you yourself were finding yourself falling in love with the people, the local people of El Salvador.
Right, and that was like that was like kind of the special part this whole last year of milestones that we've hit. It's just the first one is just like realizing the big there's a big story in Suchitoto, meaning like all the history, all the people, all the culture. There's like everything within this little town is so special. It's so special to me that like my mom and I wanted to find a way to kind of share this story with other people. And it's not just like any typical story of just like, here's a landmark, here's, when it was built, stuff like that. It's more getting in touch with the people and what makes that community so special. Like everything is from the heart. Everyone's so giving. Everyone knows your first name. And when you go there, especially with my family, like if I say I'm part of the family Cañas, everyone's like, oh, I know your grandpa, I know your grandma, your grandpa did this for me, we helped you do this. It's just like there's like a whole box of stories that come out. So like when I go like have a coffee and like sit down, some person like looks at me because I have the nose of my grandpa. They tell me, they're like, "Are you the grandchild of those Cañas?" I'm like, yeah, it's me. And then a cup of coffee turns like an hour conversation, just hearing stories. So it's just like the little things like that really people don't get to see when they come visit the town. And that's why we kind of started to create our little train truck tour, because it's just like we want, like there's so many little stories that we want to tell people and just feel connected to this little town. And yeah, it's like that's the whole part. It's just like going back to the roots and just opening that box of storytelling and people getting a sense of just like, wow, it's such a small community, but the people there are strong, have a big heart, and there's so much behind this little town.
So the business that you launched in December is in crude terms, we would call it a tourism business, but it really is a celebration of the culture, of the history, of the people of this little town, Suchitoto, which has a population of how many?
Population is around 20,000.
Around 20,000. So it really is a celebration of their stories, of your family story tying into their stories and of their culture. And that tourism business was launched in December because that was the best time to launch because of the festivals.
Yeah. And I think that's like such an important point, because even when we're developing this train truck, as we call it, and even like the way we designed it, everything was going back to that kind of our mission. It was just like it's just not like your basic tourism kind of agency or something like that. Like it's more than that. Like whatever we're making is the voice of this town. It's the voice of the people. It's all that history from the Civil War to now, because Suchitoto was actually the capital of El Salvador at one point before it switched to San Salvador. So like it's just like whatever we're creating has to tie back to that general story, our mission. And that's why our train truck, the way we built it, is we had a local artist who's actually a family friend of ours, very close family friend of ours. He and his story is even more unique because that's another story box that when you open up you're like, wow, because growing up he was so poor that he only depended on 4 colors to do his art. And to this day, like even though he's so well known now, he still uses 4 colors to make his paint. Like anything he makes is based off 4 colors. So we asked him like if he wanted to paint our truck, and a family friend of ours donated him to kind of come and paint our truck. And we let him have his way of just like giving his vision. And because we don't want to be that, we're in no shape or form willing to direct an artist at his level to like, oh, we want this, we want that, but like have what you want on it. And what came out was just like unbelievable. Like even though every time I see it, I'm just like, he sketched it all with pencil, just him and one of his like students that just painted the old church back when it was like at its prime before the Civil War. We had all of El Salvador's birds painted on the train, and we also had our famous waterfall on the train, and everything looked just so real. I'm like, wow, like it's just like even just that part of it, I'm like speechless. I never seen anything like this. It's like a beautiful
Right.
piece of art.
And so you engage the local artists, local artisans, not just the artists who were going to paint and deliver their art to the making of this train truck on the exterior, but also the people, the many, many hands that you had who built your train truck. And then you had all these other hands that were involved in uh, actually taking the truck around. You had your tour guide, you had the police force whom your mom enrolled to support you, and every stop along the way was so carefully chosen to highlight and celebrate the local people, their culture, their stories. And you had this going, and from the very first time that you launched this back in December, you were received with immediate success. And tell us a little bit about that immediate joy, immediate success that resonated with you.
Sure, it's like when you think about success, like there's like so many different ways you can kind of define what is your success. Because I had been like the first entrepreneurial project I ever done in my lifetime. My mom and I were just very we weren't sure what success looked like with this, because it really wasn't about the money, like with like profits or revenue or anything like that. Like, because at the end of the day, like we're telling a story, and we want to make sure people that come visit this town see the story. So that was always the main driver of just like making sure we have the right tour guide, we're stopping at the right locations. But once we launch, like just the feedback we were getting from people coming in were like, wow, this is one of the most beautiful trains we've seen ever within El Salvador. And just hearing the history, they're just like, this is great. Like I didn't know like this theater was like dated back this day, and this guy had so much land and property that built this theater. It's just like some of the little stories that they got to hear. So then my mom was like, wow, this is just like the beginning. What if we can like spread this type of like, now it's like, it doesn't even have to be a train tour. It's just like this level of awareness around the country. And that, I think that was like the bigger vision. Like there's so much more we can do to kind of, because it's just one town and many towns in this country that has a special story. And El Salvador gets a lot of bad press because of gang violence, and that's there, but that's just a small part. And it's these towns like Suchitoto and other small towns that just bring the actual heart of what El Salvador and the people that live there, just really what it means.
So you found that not only were people lining up to ride your train truck, but you were also seeing that amongst the local businesses, the restaurants and bars, the hotels, the partnering, even the neighboring towns came to you and they said, we want to get involved. We want to be highlighted too. We want to be able to celebrate what El Salvador has to offer, both to local tourists within the country of El Salvador and also to people who are coming in from the outside. The Ministry of Tourism expressed interest
Yeah.
in you, and you had some really big plans. But then, unfortunately, just a few months into this project, COVID-19 hit, and the country got locked down. And while you were stuck in New York, unable to actually fly into El Salvador, where your mom was, you felt that you still wanted to connect to those people. You still wanted to connect to that mission that you originally had started off with, that was connecting your passion to your purpose and wanting to help these people of El Salvador. So how were the people of El Salvador hurting? And how did you want to help?
Yeah, and I think that part of the story it was because with my mom being there, I from afar, like I would read articles of El Salvador shutting down its borders to limit any kind of spread of the virus because the hospital systems are just not capable of taking, like they're not capable of a high demand if the virus really did spread. So the president had to do what the president did is pretty much just shut down the country, and that just extends from just shutting down the border. It means, limiting people to go to supermarkets within the capital, but like outside the capital, transportation was cut off, like no more buses. Businesses had to shut down, even restaurants were shutting down. And it was just, my mom was saying it was scary to see because you would see so many people walk around this town on a daily basis, and it's a complete ghost town. And with that, it's just like the part that really hit more was a lot of community in El Salvador. A lot of people are living below the poverty rate, and it's just, and knowing that they can't depend on those daily salaries to put food under the table was what my mom told me was really, really, really tough. And like, especially within this town of Suchitoto, like she hears what's happening with people. She sees it, and that's when we were during this time, during this time, you just want to give and help people, especially those in need. And that's where you and I, Nalini, were kind of brainstorming like, what is it that I can do, or what are the potential avenues to go with. And that's where the idea with my mom and I came about. It's like we have a way to feed the families in this town, especially those that are in dire need of food.
Right. And so there's this conflation of a few challenges. So you have people who are relying on daily wages, who aren't able to earn what they're normally earning. There was, as you reported to me, some challenges in accessing the food that they would have purchased even if they did have some funds. There were some challenges with the roads too. And so your mom being on the ground, being as resourceful as she is, and being as influential and a person with a lot of charisma as she is, she actually inspired a number of people to volunteer with her on this mission that you and she envisioned and put together. So tell us a little bit about what the end result of this is. It's a bag that's about this big.
Mm-hmm.
How much does it weigh?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know how much it weighs. Probably a little over 6 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does it contain?
So we have a good family friend that my mom was speaking with. It's like, we had this idea, we want to feed the families. So we're like, all right, how are we going to feed them? Like, what's the typical things that, families that live in the outskirts of Suchitoto, like, what is it they want? They want rice, they want beans for refried beans, you need cooking oil, pasta shells, that's a good, has a great shelf life. So like, okay, that they need that. Like any typical Hispanic culture, like you need some type of sauce, like a little ranchera sauce, as we call it. So we have packets of that and dry milk, obviously, because the way these towns, they're on they live in bare minimum. So it just means just running water at most, some electricity depending on the parts of the town, but so like they don't have access to refrigerators as like we do. So like, okay, we need to have dry milk. You need milk. Then they have kids, like the typical family, the average family size is like 3 people. So they have kids, so like, okay, we need cereal too to feed the kid for breakfast and stuff like that. And so I think the list came up to like maybe 10 items that these food bags have. And when we started it out, we just, we wanted to do a test run of like, all right, we're going to donate X amount of money on the behalf of our company. And it came out to making 30 bags. And with like, the thing that was like, that's tough too, is that my mom has a pre-existing condition. She's had a lot of surgeries. She has asthma, so she cannot go and deliver these bags. So luckily, with our like family connections, we had actually a group of volunteers. Like, we can deliver. Well, number one, we can deliver the bags, but we can take it a step further. Is we're able to collect the names of the families within each community who really, really need this food at the moment. So we're like, great. So we started with 30 bags, and we delivered it to a couple of different communities and gave us some bags to the cops to deliver. And that's when I think it really hit, like the power of what we're trying to do, because I got to see the pictures, because these are areas like it's hard to get to if you don't know the town well. It's something you don't see every day. And just seeing families and kids and like what they're wearing, what the homes look like they are on like they're just living with the basic essentials, and you're just like, wow, for that $10 that we put into that one bag, it's like what? It's like a $10 New York City lunch. I'm able to feed this family for potentially 2 weeks, and that goes a long way. And I don't think because just by description wise or reading it, I'm like on our GoFundMe page, you don't really get that. Like it doesn't hit your heart until you see the families that are really touching, and that's when I was like to you, wow, Melanie, there's something here that I never felt before.
Yeah. So through that initial desire to donate on behalf of your business that was forced to shut down due to the lockdown of the country of El Salvador, and that initial desire, which manifested itself in a donation of just 30 bags of some basic staples, kitchen staples, through that process, because your mom couldn't go out there and because she had to rely on volunteers to go out and deliver those bags, they were able to collect some intelligence, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
term, and they came back with a report of how much need there really was, and with other volunteers that were able to identify exactly which addresses, which families were in greatest need, so that your mom and you were able to orchestrate a collection of donations. And how beautiful that, you just mentioned, like, in New York you can spend $10 easily on lunch, and how beautiful it is to know that $10 is all that it would take to feed a family of 3 for 2 whole weeks in Suchitoto,
Right.
right?
And I think that's why um, like seeing people during this time really come out and like help those needs. It's like you gotta you put things into perspective these days of just like what's important to you, what's important to live on, and like just this one effort where like we don't know what else can this trigger by other families, other people. Like they can see the potential of what's possible, because at the end of the day, like my mom and we're just two people in the sense of just like we don't have any background in fundraising. Like I have a marketing background. My mom worked in fashion. Like we just went on a limb. Be like we know someone that's able to give us food. We have volunteers that are able to locate those communities that are really struggling at the moment. We're going to put this all together and we'll figure it out as we go. And luckily, like within just launching the GoFundMe page, like just reaching out to my core group of friends and family, like close family friends, we raised like $1,000 in 2 days. And that's when I was like, I even just tell my mom, like, Mom, I think we have $1,000 in this GoFundMe page. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's 100 families. Then like within a week, there was like $2,000 in there, and that's when like things were becoming real. And just to give you an example of what happened this past weekend for Mother's Day, so we took the first 1,000 that we raised, and we made 100 food bags. And the thing that we wanted to be a little bit creative on how we would deliver these food bags, and I was telling my mom, like, I really like the whole thing that we wanted to do is just have that personal story touch. We're getting rid of personal anything, even with our company. I was like, we should put the names of the donors on each food bag and say where they're from, because it's just, I think because it would add a sense of just like connection to these families that are getting these bags. So, for example, if I gave $10 and put my name, Louis Moran from New York, and it would be our logo. That way, to show that people from around the world or wherever it may be are actually there to support these families, and they're not alone. Like they don't like these families don't know what's out there. They don't know what New York City is. They don't know any of that. And just so they can see a name like someone from New York is looking out for them, it's just an extra added touch. Be like, wow, like, I'm not alone right now.
And what's so beautiful and so touching to me about this is that you've had this alignment with your values, with what you believe in, with your purpose, all the way through this whole journey that you and I have taken together for about a year or so now, right? Whether it has been in how you've explored your own development, to how you started off and launched a business, how you had to set it aside due to global challenges outside of our control. But yet you weren't ready to say, okay, peace out, I'm on vacation from my side hustle business to in El Salvador. But instead, you've had a desire that's been bubbling up in you. You know, how do I stay true to connecting to those people? How do I stay true to serving those very people that I set out to serve at the get-go? And it's really particularly special to me to witness your humility throughout all of this and your connection to that passion and that purpose.
Thank you. I think that's why I'm thinking about all this. It's just like going back to the roots, and like this was already set in motions before me. Like with my grandpa, like he was this type of person who was very giving. My mom, she's very giving. Like, and then me, like I think we talked about it the other week. I'm like, this feels kind of natural. Like whatever we're doing now, it just feels like it's something that we should have been doing. And we were trying to do at the beginning with our company. Like the whole point, there was like a part of our mission statement where we wanted to give back to the community, and I don't think my mom and I put it together, but at the end of the day, we're kind of achieving on that mission statement where it's just like so happened the situation, like the train is not working, but right now, like our brand, our company, our like what we stand for is working. And that's at the end of the day is looking out for the people of this community, and especially to those that may never even see our train or anything like that. They may not be the people that are buying our tickets, but that doesn't matter. Like this is more important to us. Like these are the people that are making the community. They make up the town. They were born and raised here. And I think that's a really special part that like we didn't notice before that we're seeing now. It's like this is what we wanted to do the whole time. It's just it just looks different, but it's what we wanted to achieve.
Yeah, it's what you wanted to achieve, but you are on an ongoing journey of wanting to do more. And this is another really impressive thing that I've observed in you is that every time you achieve one thing, you want to figure out a way to give back and do more. So I'm pretty sure that in the not too distant future, we'll be hearing about yet another venture that you're up to that continues to give back and do good. So I appreciate that you are living your values. Tell us how we can support you.
So yeah, I mean, we'll share the GoFundMe link page. We'll have my information, our company email, our company Instagram, where I'm doing updates on like what we're doing and like how many families we're feeding. And like as I mentioned before, there's no small donation here, like a $5, $10, whatever it may be, it will go a long way. And I like part of like the thing that I hope it gets triggered is number one, just showing some awareness to what El Salvador. There's more to El Salvador. There's more to more to communities within El Salvador, and people need our help. With like any other country, there's always people that need help, and we hope that kind of inspires other people, whether through helping us or them starting their own campaign. Just hearing the stories that come out of this would be just so amazing because what we're trying to do, because what I mentioned before, my mom and I did not have any background in fundraising or nonprofit or anything like that, but we're doing it, we're making it work. So it is possible having an idea and just, just growing it and to see where it goes and where it takes you. And even like for our journey, like I bring my mom to the journey because she's part of this, and we don't know what's going to open up next. We're hoping more donations, more families to feed, because there's so many families that we want to feed, and the stories that we see from the videos from the volunteers is just so heartwarming. It's like trying not to catch a tear. It's so hard not to cry when you see them. But yeah, just like any awareness, any help, it goes a long way. My mom and I would appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and you and I have exchanged tears via text since we can't meet face to face
Yeah.
these days. At how much of a tremendous impact you're making, and one more point I just want to make is that it's a point that I made to you last evening, which is it's not just that you are delivering food to people who've been identified as hungry by your volunteers who've gone out to scout, but the manner in which the food is being delivered is that it is actually preserving their dignity and And that was something that I found especially heartwarming and especially touching. This was not done in any other spirit other than love and dignity and wanting to really serve. So I commend you for that. And I love that you mentioned possibilities, because we call this series that we're doing right now Elicit Your Possibilities for a very specific reason, because there's a lot of challenges going on right now, and there still is opportunity to get creative. There's still opportunity to learn something, delve into a sphere that you've never dealt into before, right? To have a little bit of strategy, a little bit of design behind it, which is part of the work that we've done. And then also to execute your own skills. And let's add in your mom's amazing resources and her connections too.
Yeah.
And putting all of that together to create an initiative that is really just beautiful.
I love those words. Yeah. All that I needed all of that.
All of that stuff. Well, nice chatting with you, Lewis. Thanks for
you,
taking time to share your story.
Of course. Thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, Lewis. Okay, please donate. Link below and link on the next slide. Here.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.